Hello, welcome or welcome back. Today I wanted to share how I make my colored pencil sketches more interesting by pushing shape and character. We're going to be sketching one of my favorite things to sketch, cats, and we'll be using supplies from the sponsor of today's video, Canson and LYRA. I'm very excited to be sponsored by them. Today we'll be using LYRA Rembrandt Polycolor pencils and Canson XL drawing paper. Let's get into it. So I've gotten quite a few questions from you guys asking how I go about pushing shape or, even seeing shape in my reference photos. And so today I thought we would exaggerate shape even further as a way to really demonstrate how I do this. And I think the thing you have to know going into it is that you're going to have to sacrifice a bit of realism in order to push this shape and push this character. So you have to get your mind out of the mindset of copying the reference. I was going to say word for word, but that's not right. We want to get out of the mindset of copying or putting down exactly what we're seeing. And I do think it took some time to be able to allow myself to do this. I think it's one of those things where you have to learn the rules in order to break them. So it is helpful to spend a lot of time drawing references or drawing from life exactly as they are. And then once you get familiar with how things really look, you can start to bend and distort and push and kind of bring in your own personality. So I think cats are a great exercise for this because they come in so many different shapes and sizes. There's so many different breeds or different looks that cats can have. So for this first cat, I only used the gold ochre and the burnt ochre. And I feel like even though there's only two colors, it feels like a very full of life sketch. I was very happy with this first little guy. I'm not super familiar with cat breeds, but I think it could be an English short hair or something English, right? But they have these flatter faces, shorter snouts, and they tend to have a grumpier look to them. So my plan going in was to make the head a little bit boxier, make the eyes a little more angular, maybe a little bit bigger, and to really exaggerate the jowls of the cat. So I lengthened the jowl snout area and extended the lines of the mouth down, more of an angular U shape, I guess. And with this first one, it was, the first drawing of the day. I felt like I was warming up, getting my art muscles both physically and mentally warmed up. So I probably could have pushed this one even further. So these LYRA Rembrandt Polycolors, I've used them before. I had a smaller set. This is the 24 set in the lovely metal tin. I've always loved that they come in metal tins. It just makes them feel really premium. They're super creamy and pigmented. That's something I've always found with them, is that their colors are punchy. For example, using the gold ochre color, rather than getting sort of a dull, muddy yellow, you get this really nice, glowy yellow ochre, which to me is reminiscent of premium yellow ochre oil paints. They also blend really nicely, and something I like to do is use a blending stump, which is really nice to soften the marks that you're putting down. And I like to combine this softer look with some harder edges and some more defined marks. I think it makes the drawings really pop. But yeah, something I really love about these is their ability to layer. Especially with the second and last cat, I was layering a bunch of colors by the end of it, and it never felt like I was pushing it too far or that the pencils were like, no more. And that's probably also thanks to the Canson drawing paper. I'm a big fan of this paper, not just because they're the sponsor of this video, but because I genuinely used Canson paper all throughout art school. that was the go-to for me, and I even had profs recommending it. For me, this drawing paper has the perfect amount of tooth to accept a lot of colored pencil, while not being so textured that it gets in the way of the drawing, if that makes sense. It's smooth, but not too smooth that you feel like you can't layer very much. So it's just a really lovely drawing experience, and great for graphite and charcoal as well. So this second cat, I really wanted to exaggerate the boxiness of this cat. I sort of wanted the whole body to feel very rectangular, even more angular than the first one. So with that in mind, I am distorting the things I see in the reference. I'm bringing the paw in so that it's perfectly in line with the side of the head, and the camera maybe didn't pick it up, but I did lightly sketch out a rectangle to fit this cat into. And that's a really fun exercise you can do, sketching out a shape and trying to force whatever you're drawing into that shape. Another thing I like to do in these sketches is to use directional hatching to give things a more interesting look. So sometimes I'm cutting across the form, like you can see on the cheeks and around the eyes. I'm using sort of these directional parallel lines to draw the eye to the center of the face or the eyes. And because I made this one so square, so rectangular, I made the eyes of this one a little rounder than, say, the first one, which just gives a cool contrast, I think. So I always try and think about contrast, not only in terms of value, so dark and light, not only in terms of color, but also with shape. And also with edges, so soft edges versus hard edges. I also wanted to push the idea of background and foreground, and this is something I do in a lot of my paintings as well. And I'm letting some areas of the cat sort of softly blend into the background, and some areas have a harder distinction between the two, and it just gives a dreamlike quality that I really enjoy. Okay, so for the third cat, I don't know what this breed is. It looks sort of like a Sphinx cat, but it has sort of curly fur. It's really interesting. And for this one, I dove into the other greens. I started sketching with the lemon cadmium. It's the cool yellow in the set, but the camera wasn't really picking it up, which is not any fault of the pencil. It's just the camera never really picks up those yellows. But later on, when I start to blend with the blending stump, you can see that glow yellow start to come through and mix in the greens, which I really liked. I also used the moss green and the sap green, which were both really beautiful, earthy, rich greens. And with this one, I was really drawn to the shapes of the snout and that little bottom chin. And so I really wanted to push those shapes. I made the eyes even bigger than what is in the reference, and I made them a little more angular. I made those pupils really big. To be honest, I feel like I could have pushed the character in this one further. I think as far as, shape and character are concerned, I think this one is my least favorite of the four, but I really do like them all, and I really like how they all ended up looking together. The ears on this cat were super fun, and I think I could have made them even bigger and more ridiculous, but there were lots of fun shapes and angles there to play with. But something I'll do for areas that I don't want as much attention to be drawn to, areas that aren't the focal point, is I will do less of the directional hatching. So for the green Sphinx cat, I'll just call it a Sphinx cat, the body to me was less important. So I just did a general vertical up and down shading there, same as the background. And that allows the face and the head to really come forward, I think. I also made sure to make the the lines of the chin and around the mouth harder and more defined so that the face really comes forward off of the body. Whereas the first and second cat, their snouts were a little flatter and their faces in general were a little bit flatter, so there wasn't as much of a hard distinction, between chin and body. So those are just things that I'm thinking about. So this last cat maybe ended up being my favorite. Like the last one, I used only 3 colors. I used the light orange, the dark orange, and the pale geranium lake. So for this one, I really wanted to exaggerate those eyes. I also really loved the shadow shape under this cat's head and that leading line that goes up the right side of the cat's face. So those were some things I wanted to exaggerate. I also love the markings on the cat. Lots of fun shapes to exaggerate there. And with this one, I did a little more shading and a little less of the hard edges or, like the drawn outlines, which I really enjoyed the look of. I also decided to merge the hind legs of the cat, the body of the cat, with the background and create sort of this rectangular shape on the bottom here where you can't really discern which part is cat and which part is background, but it really allows for those front paws to pop forward. Something I really like to do with cat drawings in particular, picking and choosing what whiskers I want to include and designing shapes around them. I think it's always a good idea to look at your reference for a bit before you start and sort of brainstorm just quickly what you want to do with it. Maybe what shapes you see, what shapes you want to exaggerate, what parts of the reference interest you and what parts don't interest you. So for example, does that particular cat have really interesting eyes, very captivating eyes? Is there, a shape of the jawbone that you think is really cool? And those are the things that you can push. And when you do this, you will be sacrificing realism, but what you will get will have much more character, much more personality, and honestly, it will just be a lot more fun. So here are the finished cat sketches. I think this spread turned out really, really cute. I'd love to know what your favorite is, so let me know down below. I have a soft spot for the first one with that grumpy expression, but I really love the last one, as I said. And a huge thank you to Canson and LYRA for sponsoring today's video. I will have links to the LYRA Rembrandt Polycolor pencils and the Canson drawing paper down below. Once again, really happy to be working with them as I really do love these products. A big thank you as well to my channel members and my patrons over on Patreon. Thank you so much for your support. Remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye!